Good evening. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas. And so I'm so glad you joined me today. We're going to be talking about forgiveness and how it impacts our mental health. You might think that holding on to anger or resentment hurts the other person, but the truth is that unforgiveness does far more harm to yourself than to anyone else. And so today we're just going to explore how it affects your mind, your emotions, your overall well-being, and why letting go is a very powerful act of self-care. So we're going to first start to talk about how unforgiveness feels, like how it feels within our mind and how it feels within our body. When you hold on to a grudge or resentment, it can trap you in negative emotions like anger, bitterness, or even sadness. And over time, this emotional weight creates chronic stress, which can take a serious toll on your mental health. So chronic stress is it can happen when resentment keeps your body in a heightened state of alert. It activates stress hormones like cortisol. You may constantly feel drained, tense, or unable to focus because your body and your mind are stuck in a fight or flight mode. And so also the mental health side of it, unforgiveness can feed anxiety and depression. You might find yourself ruminating or replaying the hurt over and over and over again. That traps your mind in a cycle of negativity, and it's like reliving the same painful moment over and over again. Also, the emotional impact of unforgiveness is that it impairs our ability to regulate our emotions. So when you hold on to anger or resentment, it can make it harder to move on from the past. It can cause a person to feel stuck in a loop of unresolved pain. And you also may find yourself reacting emotionally to unrelated situations, and that can lead to unnecessary conflict or outbursts. So other people that are in your life, sometimes they may get the brunt of that, and that can cause a strain on your relationships. So the emotional struggle can create an internal conflict where part of us wants peace, but another part clings to the hurt. And that internal tug of war can be exhausting, and it can lead to feelings of guilt or shame for not being able to let it go. Also, our self-perception and our relationships, as I spoke about, can also struggle. Unforgiveness doesn't just affect how you feel, it also shapes how you see yourself and how you relate to others. It can damage your self-worth. Holding on to resentment can make you feel stuck in a victim mentality where you can see yourself as powerless or wronged. Over time, this erodes your confidence and your self-esteem. It can also bring challenges to our relationships. It can cause bitterness or mistrust. It can spill over into other areas of our life. So you can struggle with trusting people. You can avoid situations where you would be vulnerable. And vulnerability is a really important part of building trust in relationships, especially if you have experienced a heartbreak in a relationship, and then you're trying to start over in a romantic relationship, and you meet somebody that's really nice, and you guys are getting to know each other, and then just being able to be vulnerable, that's one thing that builds trust. But when people have unforgiveness, or they feel like this relationship is going to be like other relationships and they carry that baggage with them, it can be hard to be vulnerable with that person. And so sometimes the person on the opposite end can feel like something is going on, or can feel like there's a disconnect. So sometimes that can even push that person away because you're carrying that unresolved pain. So there could also be physical symptoms to unforgiveness. So unresolved emotions can also manifest physically. So people can have poor sleep due to racing thoughts or tension. They can have poor sleep, ruminating that thought over and over again in their mind. They can have poor sleep just because of the emotional intensity that they feel, whether it's a feeling of sadness or bitterness or anger. They can also have chronic headaches or muscle pain that stems from carrying emotional stress in your body. And these physical symptoms often feed back into mental health struggles, so it creates a vicious cycle that's often hard to break. So all of those things that we just talked about, how it affects our mental health, it affects our emotional state, it affects our physical bodies. But you do have the ability to move forward and move out of it and come into forgiveness. And so you can break free. And so I'm going to talk about a couple things that you can do. And so the first thing that you can do is have self-awareness. So you want to be able to recognize how unforgiveness is affecting you. You can take time to reflect on your emotions and how they're holding you back. And so you want to be able to have like moments of self-reflection, like when you're thinking about your day or reviewing some things that went on today and some of your interactions, you can think about like sometimes during the day where you may have been a little bit tense, or you may have lashed out, or where you may have felt stressed in your body and things like that. And then try to really hone in on those things and really think about it and just reflect on it. Like, what could I have done differently? What could I have done better? Could I have been kinder? Could I have been more gentle, not only to others in my life, but to myself? You also want to think about just some therapeutic practices that you can incorporate during your day. You can do some deep breathing, have some quiet time, meditate on some scriptures. You can also talk to a trusted friend. Counseling can be a good safe space to work through deep-seated anger or grief, or any traumatic experiences. If you have someone in your life that you trust, you can call them and talk to them about it, and have an opportunity to just really come into a space where you feel like you have someone that you can trust, where you feel safe, where you can be transparent, where you can be vulnerable, and you can talk about how this situation is affecting you so you can move into an area of forgiveness. And also you want to practice self-compassion. And I know we've talked about this in a few different lives, but self-compassion is so important because sometimes we can be really unkind to ourselves. And a few weeks ago, my pastor did a message, Talk to Me Nice. And I know we've all heard this saying, like, talk to me nice or don't talk to me at all. But when my pastor talked about Talk to Me Nice, he was talking about how we talk to ourselves and the things that we say to ourselves, because we are with ourselves every day. And so we need to be talking to ourselves nicely. And so remembering that forgiveness doesn't mean that you're excusing the hurt. It means you're choosing to prioritize your peace and your mental health. And I want to say that again, because I think one of the main reasons people don't want to forgive and move on is because they feel like, I don't want to let that person off the hook. You don't understand what that person did to me. You don't understand how that person made me feel. But forgiving that person doesn't mean that you're excusing the hurt. It means that you're choosing to prioritize your peace and your mental health. You are prioritizing your peace and your mental health. So you're not excusing them. You're just making yourself the priority. And also want to talk about, lastly, to moving towards forgiveness, I want to talk about letting go. When you release resentment, you open up space for joy, clarity, and better emotional resilience. And so sometimes when we're so angry and we're so upset about things, we don't even have room for peace. We don't have room for joy. It's like we're looking at life through a trauma lens or an angry lens or a resentful lens, and we don't have time we even see things different. We respond to situations different. And so in order to move toward forgiveness for your own peace, you have to be able to start letting things go and moving toward joy and peace and clarity and better emotional resilience. And if there is something that has really happened that is really, really severe and really traumatic, we don't want to ignore that. So I would really stress seeking professional counseling so you can have the opportunity to really process what has happened. and think about your response to it and how you're going to deal with it, because you can and you will come into forgiveness. It is possible. No matter what has happened, you can come into a space of forgiveness. And so ultimately, forgiveness is a gift that you give to yourself. It's about freeing your mind and freeing your heart from the weight of negativity. So when you let go, you reclaim your mental space, you improve your relationships, and you are able to step into a healthier, more peaceful version of yourself. And so you're really taking the time to do something for yourself. Because sometimes we can be so mad at somebody and we can be in unforgiveness. Like, I'm never going to forgive that person. That person is going on living their life, don't know what they did, or either don't care what they did. And here we are, a prisoner of our own thoughts and our own emotions, and we don't have to live like that. It truly, truly affects your mental health and your well-being and your joy and your peace. And so you have to be able to find a way to let it go. And as I said, some situations are more complex than others. And so if you need to talk to somebody that you trust or talk to a professional, then that's the way that you should go. But whatever you need to do to get your joy and your peace back, and to let it go, that is something that you should pursue, because life is so short and it doesn't make sense to hold on to things that happened 2 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It's just affecting you, and it starts to affect not only your mental health, but it can also affect your physical health, to be in unforgiveness. And so we just want to be careful and want to be conscious of that, because a lot of times from a spiritual perspective, having unforgiveness can cause dis-ease or disease to set up in our body. So we just really want to be careful with carrying like feelings of resentment or anger or stress at a heightened level every day, all day. It really affects our physical health and our mental health as well. And so I just want to thank you for spending time with me today. And if this resonates with you, I encourage you to take a moment to reflect on what forgiveness could mean for your life. Like, what could this mean for me? Is this preventing me from having joy and peace in my life? Is this affecting my physical health? Is this affecting my mental health? Is my body tensed? Am I feeling this in my body? And it's not always easy, but it's one of the most liberating things that you can do for your mental health. And so if you are willing to work on this, it can do wonders for your life. It really can. And forgiveness is not about the other person. It's about choosing peace for yourself. So thank you so much for tuning in. I know this is a very serious topic. So if you have any questions or comments, please drop them below. You can find me on Instagram or Facebook, and I would love to hear from you. And thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a great evening.